First off, just want to say thank you to everybody for being here this afternoon. What's turning into a nice little sunny, bit out here. I hope it's the same in the city, John. It's been, I have to say, coming back from spring break, and I know seeing the changes in the building in the city in terms of getting the teachers lounge workroom back, getting, kids back into some spaces, getting the TTI, now known as the WI room, back to some spaces, and teachers, back out in their natural habitats, and seeing the kids in the building after spring break has been wonderful. It's been such an uplifting feel. Spring is in the air. Actually, John and I both shaved, hoping to usher on a little spring here. I'm not sure we timed it just perfectly, but just happy to have everybody back and see everyone in great spirits. So as you all know, we have a visit coming up, and I'm going to let John talk about a bit more about the kind of the NYSAIS process, what to expect on the visit, who's on the team, and then we're going to go into sharing our feedback from our faculty survey. So I'm going to share my screen here, John, and let you get started on this, and just give me tell me when you want to advance the slide, and we'll start moving from there.
Thanks. Hey everybody. The first few slides we're not going to spend too much time on because they're pretty much the same slides that you saw if you joined us for the state of the school a little while ago when we were going over the data from the parent survey. And after I do a little talk about the visit that's upcoming in April, Jamie will talk about the professional community survey. So the New York State Association of Independent Schools, that's our accrediting organization throughout New York State of all independent, pretty much all independent schools that choose to be part of it, which is just about all of them. And they're coming to do our decennial accreditation. It should have happened about 2 years ago, but the obviously pandemic got in the way. And so we're getting around to it. Jamie, we can go to the next slide. This includes the accreditation process, which is quite rigorous. And the self-study I'm gonna talk a little bit about, but that's been done and handed in. And so the bulk of our work is sort of past now. And now we're just getting ready for the visit, which is really for us, the culmination of the entire process. The visiting team, as I'll explain, will have to write a report. Then we get that report. And the real culmination of the process is our reading that report and what we do with it. This process of the accreditation is supposed to include all members of the school community. With a professional community as large as ours and parent body as large as ours, we really needed to lean into some surveys as a way of making sure everyone had an opportunity to participate. And a lot of people did take advantage of that. We explore all aspects of school life, and this is the foundation. That report is the foundation of a visit by a committee that's going to, and I'll tell you about everyone who's going to be visiting us. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. So the visit schedule, it starts on Sunday, April 10th, and almost all accreditation visits in NYSAIS are done in this way, where it starts on a Sunday and then it goes until Wednesday. The visiting team is going to meet, their home base is going to be at our Westchester Lower School because it just really has the best space and conference rooms available to us. It also is an easy jumping off point to the Westchester Middle School, but we understand that the visiting committee is going to want to spend some time on all 3 of our campuses, or members of the visiting committee should be on all 3 of our campuses. So they show up on Sunday. They've all, I think, met each other virtually, but they'll all get to meet each other on Sunday. They're gonna have their own room that's dedicated to them through the course of these days. They're gonna get set up in there. We're gonna make sure they're connected on their computers. Then we'll have a welcoming party, a welcoming cocktail party for them for the visiting committee, for some board members, some parents from the WPA, some administrators in the steering committee, and who I'll tell you about shortly. And then they work really hard. Visiting committee members for NYSAIS are committed to 4 days of super hard work, because their goal at the end of the 4 days is to have their report done. So they're going full speed for those 4 days. On Monday, April 11th, that's the first full day of their visit. The visiting team will be on our campuses. There will be some scheduled interviews. You are either scheduled for interviews already and you know it, and or you're going to know by early next week. But most of the people they're meeting are people who had a strong hand in writing the report. People shouldn't be surprised by a scheduled interview. They'll also be making classroom visits and having ad hoc conversations with anyone they can see. I'll talk more about that briefly. Same thing happens on Tuesday the 12th. They have their meetings. They'll be, seeing schools, our campuses. And then on Wednesday, April 13th, that's really a day when they come together. They'll probably only be at the Westchester Lower School. They're going to put themselves in that room around a big table, and they're just going to pound out their report. Everyone has their roles to play, and their goal by the end of the day on Wednesday is to be handing off to their visiting committee chair a draft of the report. They might use that day for some follow-up meetings with people they didn't get a chance to thoroughly meet with, but most of the day on Wednesday is just writing. And then, as I understand it, Jamie, we're going to be asking the visiting chair to do a little video that on Wednesday afternoon to share with us as a way of wrapping up and saying thank you and goodbye to us and giving us a few tips on what they experience. Is that the plan?
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think with our schedule, it'd be hard for us to get everyone together for him to do a kind of Zoom meeting for everybody. And we certainly don't want to ask our teachers to stay later into the afternoon past 3:30. Let's go to the next slide, please. So our visiting team roster, Scott Gaynor from the Stephen Gaynor School. He's the chair of our committee. He's a great friend of the school and a super person as well. And so, so much of this is driven by the chair, and we're in really, really good hands with him. Albina Miller from the Parkside School, Jenny Black from my alma mater, Rye Country Day School. Now, I didn't have Jenny when I was a student there, but she was a teacher there when I was a student, and she was a teacher there while I was a teacher. And she is a super, super experienced middle school English teacher and a very nice person as well. So I'm excited to see her. Abby Diamond from right over here at the Trevor Day School will be part of the committee. And then we have one more page of a roster. We've got Jed Diaguardi, who is, a big name in the NYSAIS IT field. And I think we're really lucky to have him from the Hackley School. Ellie Forsyth from St. Anne's in Brooklyn. Adam Gimple. Now, obviously, he's a director of college counseling, but that's okay. He's not here to analyze us, but he's just a school person, and he's going to bring to bear his expertise as a school person. And it's fine that, that we don't have a college counseling office. And then Courtney Jimenez from Mary McDowell Friends School. So it's exciting to have some people from the special ed world as well as from the mainstream independent school world on this committee. So next slide, please. All right, so here are a few things about what to expect. As I said, there will be scheduled meetings. And again, you should know by early next week, at the latest, early next week, if you have a scheduled meeting. We've been trying to nail down with Scott Gaynor exactly when they want to be on different campuses. So we would love to have had that schedule nailed down by now, but this is an unusual visit when there are 3 different campuses for a team to try to see. So it's taking just a little longer to get that done. People should expect some ad hoc meetings. There's a chart as part of the accreditation visit where we give them every employee at the school, every faculty and staff member is on a list, and their goal is to have a touch base with every single person in our professional community. That is not going to happen, but they're going to do their, I don't think it's going to happen, but they're going to do their very best to do it. I was on a visiting committee a few years ago, and we got pretty close, but it was a much smaller school in one space. But that's their goal. So you should not be surprised if a member of the visiting committee comes up to you and says hi. And it's not gonna be a gotcha moment. They're not gonna ask you pointed questions. It's just an opportunity for them to ask how you are, ask if there's anything you'd like to share. And I think when it comes to what you might want to share in an ad hoc meeting or what you might share in a scheduled meeting, it's important for us to keep in mind that the visiting committee is here to get a sense of who we say we are and what we say we do. And then the visit is all about, are we who we say we are, and do we do what we say we do? This is not an opportunity. It should not be an opportunity for people to grind their personal axes. Is that the proper metaphor? Or have your, issues. But let me also say this. It's also not a place where you're expected to sing all the praises of the Windward School and put us in the very, very best light and don't say anything about how we might grow. Be such a huge part of this entire process is helping us identify what we do well and what are our areas for growth. And we're going to be sharing out the full report with you right after this meeting. It's about 120 pages. You certainly don't need to read all of it. You might be interested in different sections of the report. You might learn about our finance. You might learn more about governance. You might learn more about different elements of the school and what we say we do. But you'll see that just about every section of the report has major strengths and areas for growth. So we identify already up front, here are the areas where we think we want to grow and where we need to grow. And a big part of their job is to affirm us in the things that we say we do well and to help us identify and commit ourselves to the areas of growth. So they give us commendations and recommendations. And that's such an important part of the process because it is about growth, which is one of our core values, as you all know. And so it is okay for you to say, I'm excited to see us grow in a certain way, or I think it's really important that we grow in certain ways. I think it's by sharing the report with you, you have an opportunity to see what we've identified as areas for growth. And I guess I'd say if you think that there's something missing from our report that could have been an area for growth, I'd love to have that conversation with you. And let's do that. And but just the key is it shouldn't be, you know, a personal opportunity for you to say all that's wrong with the school. And you also should not be using it you shouldn't feel under pressure to only place the school in its very, very best light. Just be honest about who we are and how you see the school. There's going to be an opportunity for questions in a moment, by the way. Oh, sorry, Jamie, let me finish that slide. Sorry. Teachers should be aware that visitors have sort of carte blanche to walk into any classroom at any time. We know that there's going to be some coding testing going on during the week of the visit, and we're going to let them know about that, and they shouldn't be entering those rooms. But if they look and they see that there's a classroom and there's teaching going on, they're supposed to be able to walk in the room, stand and observe for a little bit and walk on out. And everyone should prepare the kids for that, and you should be prepared for that. But again, they're not sitting there taking notes they're not going to identify a teacher who wasn't doing what the school says the teacher was supposed to be doing. If they see something interesting, it'll be an opportunity for a conversation. But none of us are worried about what they're going to see in the classrooms. They're going to observe arrival and dismissal times because those are important safety issues for a school. They're also going to be observing at least one fire drill, which is part of the reason we've been doing fire drills this week, is to make sure that, especially with COVID restrictions being relieved a little bit, we want to make sure that we have our fire drills in order, because it's a very objective, one of the few really objective things about their visit that they're going to expect to see us do correctly. Otherwise, the vast majority of the visit is not about are we doing things correctly, it's are we doing what we say we do, and are we doing what was in our report. They're going to have some lunches with some students, and our campus heads are going to identify those students that they would like to meet with. I'm sorry, I didn't finish that bit there about published schedule. The published schedule, that thing in parentheses was me saying, I was going to say we are aware that there's coding testing going on, and I forgot to finish that comment there. The committee, as I said, is going to be the bulk of their stationing is going to be at the Westchester Lower School, but we should expect them on all the different campuses. I've already said what the goals of the visiting committee is going to be. The report of the visiting committee is a long document that they're going to have a draft of by the time they finish on Wednesday. Scott Gaynor is going to talk to Jamie about that draft before he leaves on Wednesday and give Jamie a little bit of a heads up about what he saw in the sort of major recommendations that he's probably going to be putting in the report. I don't think Jamie's going to be surprised by anything that he says. And then we're hoping that Scott will make a little video to speak to the community, and we can watch it asynchronously about his feedback on their visit. And then we will eventually, that report goes to the Board of Trustees of NYSAIS. When they approve that report, that's the approval of our accreditation, that we get reaccredited for the next 10 years. And what's interesting is in 5 years, we have the 5-year visit that requires us to write another report. It's not 120 pages. It's about, I think, about half that length. And we also have a visit that is shorter with fewer people. And the bulk of the 5-year visit, which I was part of here at Windward some years ago, the bulk of the 5-year visit is what are those major recommendations that they made to us in the report, and how are we doing on those recommendations? That's what really makes up the 5-year visit. And then in 5 more years, we'll have another decennial visit. Okay, great. Let's go to the next slide. And if you have any questions, would you please put them in the Q&A section? I'll be glad to try to answer them. Have any questions about the visit? Anything at all? Sure. I'm again going to give time for people to type, by the way, and the good old wait time. Okay. If people, oh wait, will we have to do a lockdown? Great question, Ms. Rathbun. No, we're not going to be doing a lockdown drill, but fire drill for sure. Is there a set time they will be visiting classrooms? Great question as well. No, there's not a set time they will be visiting classrooms. From my experience, when I did a visit, I wasn't a chair, but I had a schedule of meetings that the chair asked me to be part of. So they have like little groups of, there's some people in the committee who are going to be very focused on finance. Some are going to be focused on programming. Some are going to be focused on academics. And I had my set meetings, and then I would run back to the office, and I'd write up my notes. And if I had free time, I'd go off and I'd try to walk into some classrooms. So they're going to visit classrooms whenever they have free time to do so. Will there be scheduled visits for the committee chairs to discuss our section? Depending on what they ask for, they're going to be asking to meet with some committee chairs, but I'm not sure they're going to meet with every committee chair to discuss every section. Can I recall what the NYSAIS committee recommended to work on for the last 5-year report? It's a great question. I don't, off the top of my head right now, I'm not recalling that because we weren't focused on that previous report. But I think that'd be really healthy for us to be thinking about, and if only as a way of growing. So Pat, I'm really glad you asked that question. And I think it would be really interesting for us to look at what are some of those growth areas from 10 years ago and from 5 years ago and see where we are now. I'm so glad that you brought that up. Will coordinators have scheduled meetings with the NYSAIS committee? The NYSAIS committee is asking to meet with people, but they don't necessarily, we're trying to respond to what their requests are. And I don't think they're gonna be able to meet with every coordinator. So we were just talking today and trying to figure out what it is they're asking for. But I can tell you, if you are going to be in a meeting directly with them, you'll know that by early next week. I think if we could, if it were up to us about who would meet with the committee, we would really think through that. But we are really responding to what the visiting committee is asking for and setting up meetings based on their requests. While any more questions come in, I don't want to miss something that's really extremely important about all this, and that's to thank some people. So I want to start, please, with our steering committee, who was so instrumental in getting this off the ground. When we started this in the fall of 2019, maybe even the summer of 2019, we started this process, and we had this fantastic steering committee who I cannot thank enough, and I want to say their names real quickly here. So first of all, there's Karina Bowerly, who has since retired. She was representing the Westchester Lower School, but Karina was so important to getting this going. Lori Squilanti, currently at our Manhattan Lower School, was representing the Manhattan Lower School, was on our steering committee. Will Cranch, representing the Manhattan Middle School, and Melanie Murphy representing the Westchester Middle School. And also Angeline DeSanti was such a key person on our steering committee. And since Angeline has moved over to support Jamie, Lisa has really taken up a huge part of that process as well. So I want to thank Lisa Moo as well. Angeline and Lisa have been working so hard recently to get all this going, and do all and take care of all the details. So I want to thank Karina, Lori, Will, Melanie, Angeline, and Lisa. And I also want to thank Jonna Cook. Jonna Cook from our communications office was so important in helping us refine the report and get our language together, and turn it into a document that we can hand in and be proud of. So I want to thank Jonna as well, and everyone who had such a key part of it. I'm not going to thank everyone by name right now, but everyone who was on a committee, especially our committee chairs. Thank you so much for all of your work in writing those sections and drafting them and responding to us and putting it all into place. When you all see the report, which we're going to send out after this meeting, I hope it's something that you can be proud of. And again, if there's anything in the report that you think strikes you wrong or that might have been missing, I hope that you'll take the opportunity to reach out to me, and I'd love to have that conversation. So I don't see any more questions that have come in. Thank you everyone for your time, and Jamie, pick it up from here.
Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate it. So as we did last time with the parent survey, wanted to kind of reflect back our results from the staff faculty staff survey. Certainly, I think that as we talked about with the parent survey, there's no way that we could have gone through the last 2 years without having some impact in the community and having that impact felt in a moment like this. It's as across the country, we know that education has been, deeply impacted by the pandemic. It's been just incredibly challenging for all schools, for all places, and we are no different. And so I think a lot of our data in some ways reflects that in a big way. And so let me just walk you through kind of where we are here. So we had 207 responses, which was, only 45% of our community. A little lower than what we would have hoped, but we certainly are really appreciative of those who did fill out the survey. Key areas for us, as always, this idea of looking at mission, looking at school culture, looking at governance, school leadership, communications, technology, human resources, professional development, and academic program. All of them were a 6-point Likert scale plus, so really the 5 plus or 6 plus the NA option. So we did have a few things, and you'll see some asterisks on there. So whenever there was a bunch of, the NA, we actually took the NAs out of the percentage because it just doesn't quite make as much sense on that. So I want to walk you through kind of where we are. When it comes to mission, 95% of our community that responded agreed that we certainly successfully capture our mission captures our unique philosophy, values, and culture. 79% of folks felt like that our mission provides opportunities for social emotional growth within an intentionally diverse and inclusive setting. This one is actually, I think there's a lot going on in this particular thing. So we need to sort of figure out how to better unpack. Is it that we don't feel like we have enough access to social emotional growth, or that we need to do some work on the intentionally diverse and inclusive setting? Both of those, I think, honestly need a little bit of a conversation around, but we're trying to kind of ferret that out a little bit. 96% of our community agreed that we are effective in meeting the institution's mission, and share that expertise with the broader community. And so really pleased with that data. When it comes to school culture, so Windward provides a safe and inclusive school community. 91% of our community agreed with that statement. 80% felt that we were effective in ensuring that all members of the community feel a powerful sense of belonging. I do think this really sort of speaks to our need to continue our DEIB work, continue our work to make sure that we're engaging stakeholders along the way, and bringing a lot of voices to the table. 92% of the folks felt like we had a high degree of collegiality among our faculty and staff, so we were certainly kind of pleased with that. When you look at kind of school culture here, again, I do think these numbers are really representative of where we are right now, and also that we have some work to do in this space here. We had just started the conversation around values when I'd arrived, and just months before the pandemic started. And my hope is now that we are entering a space of a lot more normalcy, we can start to begin our return to having a lot more conversations about that. But 83% of folks felt like the culture at Windward really fosters a positive and meaningful engagement of all our community. 84% believe that our community policies reflect and support the goals of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Again, we have some work to do on this. We're excited about where the dive-in committee and where Romina is working to kind of help us move. The Windward School as an appropriate commitment to community service projects, 80%. And if you remember from the parent one, that was not far off the parent one. We got some, we have some attention to put towards our community service work. I know we do some great work in that, but I think we also just need to up our commitment to that and help our kids see the great work that they can do. When it comes to having a clear understanding of what the Board of Trustees do for our school community, only 60% felt like they had a really clear picture of that, which is not surprising. Our board during the pandemic, has not been as actively engaged, and I don't know that we've had the conversations to kind of really fully flesh out what that group does. These are, they're not volunteers. We don't refer to them as volunteers, we refer to them as unpaid professionals. So, they really help us make sure that we are holding ourselves to a high standard from our mission, making sure that we're, always bringing, our best quality program to the community, ensuring that we have adequate resources to help us do this work. But we need to spend a little more time sharing with the community. We have a wonderful board of trustees who have been so deeply committed. I know you've heard from Patty and some others along the way over the last few years, but we want to make sure that we really tell that story of all the great work that's happening there and how that work interfaces with the school community. And so this is a very clear indication to us that we have some work to do in helping our community understand. I also think it's important to note that we have a significant percentage of folks in their community who are under 5 years. And so we have a lot of folks who are newer to the community, who haven't had a lot of exposure to the board. Being in the pandemic for the last two years has just not allowed us to have a lot of those conversations. So we look forward to helping our community understand that to a much greater degree. School leadership. When it comes to, 92% of folks felt like school administrators assure an appropriate sense of confidentiality for conversations. 87% felt like the administration is supportive of your role in the school. And, and 83% of our community felt like the leadership team applies policies to families equitably across the socioeconomic status or perceived contributions to the school community. So we have some work on to kind of make sure that folks understand how we do that work and how we make sure that we're engaging our school community in a very equitable and fair way. I think this is a school that really truly does, kind of step above and rise above that at all points. There are a lot of schools that find themselves in some challenge on this. But we want to make sure we're communicating how we're sort of making some of those decisions to a much greater degree. When it comes to communications, I think this has been one that throughout COVID we've been deeply challenged on. Decisions and expectations are clearly communicated by administration and to faculty and staff in a timely manner. We have been in such an incredible response mode in a reactive mode over the last 2 years. And I know that has been challenging for everyone. It's been challenging for the leadership team. I know it's been challenging for our community, for our parents, for our teachers. And it's really something that we are going to take a deep look at moving forward. I know this is on Beth DeMarty's radar in a big way. Overall communication with the school is timely and effective. We're looking at doing a communications audit to kind of better understand. We have folks who say we want more information. We have folks who say they want less information. Folks who say you should email me. Folks who say you should call me. Folks who say we should send out smoke signals whenever we have something. So we have a lot of different preferences on the table, and we need to figure out how do we best, kind of do some of this work. We have worked channel a lot through the WeBlast. I think sometimes that all that sort of in one space can be really dense for folks. We're trying to, bullet point as much as possible to be as clear and succinct, reduce our word count while also just making sure that we're trying to, just be effective in how we are communicating in general. But we have some work to do in this space, not knocking all the great work that our communications team has done over the last 2 years to ensure that we're getting as much out, but it's been a real challenge. And so we hear you, we see that, and we're going to do some work to make sure we're growing that as we move forward. Technology. I think technology during COVID has been one of the biggest challenges. We had some real gaps to close here. And so 76% of folks believe that there's effective use of technology within the school. we're going to continue to kind of look at that. When it comes to assessment, compensation, and fulfillment, so 89% of folks believe that you're clearly informed of your professional responsibilities and assessed fairly. I do think we can do a lot better in that area. 59% of folks felt like compensation is fair and equitable for your specific role at the school. You know, I know that we've had a lot of time and to really reflect on this particular data. You know, we work to benchmark ourselves against the Fairchester schools, but also looking on the faculty side at the schools in Westchester. We have made some real inroads on moving the needle in that way, both on the faculty side and on the staff side, and we're continuing to look at that. But we always work to benchmark ourselves and make sure that we are paying in a competitive way. You know, you can pick a public school or two and say this school district pays a lot more than us, and you can find those folks. But when we look at the averages in Westchester and the averages in our in the Fairchester group, we are actually right in the middle to above the middle of the pack on that, which I think folks don't often realize, and it's not a story we've told well. But we're also working just to make sure that we are really thinking about our compensation, growing our benefits package. You know, I remember conversations when I first arrived about, you know, how we were using the difference card and what the role or what the benefits package has been. And I know Jada has been really working on making sure that we're thinking about how to best bring the best to our employees at all points. I will say I was really pleased to see that 90% of folks who are here find a deep sense of personal fulfillment in their work. You know, I think this work is mission oriented, and I think that my hope is that feeds everyone. I know it feeds me in a really big way. But I just really appreciate everyone sharing some open, honest feedback in this category. When it comes to our academic program, again, this was kind of in a kind of hybrid context, right? So the typical teaching, because again, we have just, you know, recognized that this is just challenging in a hybrid or remote environment. That we have school facilities designed in a manner that's conducive to academic learning. 90% of folks agreed. Again, we had some NAs in there, so that's why there's an asterisk on that number, because we have some folks who are on the non-academic side of that who, you know, don't sort of get to see that every day. Academic program successfully addresses student acquisition and application of skills. 96% of our folks agreed with that one, and I think our teachers do an incredible job on both of these areas here. The management of student behavior is effective in decreasing problematic behaviors as well as in conflict resolution when necessary. And we had 72% of folks who felt like that was the case. I do think there's some work here for us. There's a real nugget here for us to be thinking about. And how do we create some better systems and really better coaching on this for both our kids and helping support teachers in this space here. And I also know that it's been even so much harder throughout the pandemic whenever we've just had a lot more sort of, you know, tension on the table. Kids are struggling, adults are struggling, parents are struggling with lots and lots of spaces here. So really appreciate that. And we're going to spend some time thinking about how we can better support our community in this way. When it comes to DEIB and the academic program, you know, I have to be honest, these numbers are not surprising. I know that we have put some work in. I know that we have a long, long way to go. And I just want to make sure folks understand we don't see this work as being anywhere being close to done. But we, you know, the idea, 71% of folks agree that we have appropriately diverse backgrounds, perspectives represented in the educational program. We're looking at this both in the student side and on the faculty staff side to make sure that we're, you know, one, thinking about the ecosystem that with which you know, Windward exists in, and how do we really sort of broaden that perspective, both in recruiting students and casting a much wider net when it comes to employees. 79% of folks agree that issues of equity and justice and civic responsibility, discussions of anti-oppression are appropriately addressed inside the classroom. You know, I know that I'm so proud of the work that Christine Maloney had done for us over her last few years, and then certainly transitioning to Ramina's leadership on this. You know, we have some work to do, but I'm really pleased to see the progression we're having here. But knowing that we have a long way to go, and we're going to continue to put a really strong shoulder into moving that work forward. So, when it comes to professional development, 88% of our folks felt like they were adequately supported and helped grow through ongoing training and professional development, both internally and externally. So that was about 88% of folks. 92% agree that our faculty evaluation program is supportive for teacher growth. We've been having lots of conversations about that recently. We want this to be a space where we can see ourselves as needing to grow and learn, not in a sort of deficient way, but in a way that we always want to be better at our craft and our profession and our work. And so we're always looking to make sure that folks see the growth and the feedback as supportive, not as anything but. When 96% of folks agree that the totality of the assistant teacher training program and mentoring programs at Windward, certainly the courses and the SIPs, is effective for preparing teachers in their instructional roles. This is one where I have to say we are second to no one in this space. Our program is so incredible. But even within our program and the quality it is, we're always trying to think about how do we make that a little bit better and a little bit stronger, and looking at the spaces where we have some holes and how do we support that continued growth and expertise there. Because we know the strength of our teachers is what really impacts the strength of our program every step of the way. So we're going to continue to bring that work to bear and always work about strengthening that. So opportunities to growth, as John pointed out, whenever you do a report like this, it's a very, very long report. Every section of the report has a couple of things. One, it has some areas of strength, some things that we feel like we're doing really well. A summary, certainly the first thing is a summary, the areas of strength. And then we have these things where we say these are important areas for growth. And then when we get the report back, the team's going to give us some areas, recognize some areas of strength, identify some areas of growth for us. My hope is that there's some real congruence between what we say and what they say. Right? That's the idea, is that this is not about kind of evaluating how we run our fire drill, but to say, are you doing it in the way that you anticipated and wanted to do it? Isn't it working for you in that way? And there's always opportunities for us to kind of, grow and sharpen that. But then there are some things within those categories that flow throughout the school report. Some things that kind of float up to what we consider the higher level components of this. So wanted to kind of, just share what we see as some big opportunities coming out of the data, both on the parent side and the data on the faculty staff side of this. When it comes to, discipline and SEL, I think there's an opportunity here for us to really ensure more structured and explicit training of teachers in classroom management, and really working to support our work in that. We are also going to continue to invest in resources for greater support and coordination within the guidance department across divisions, and always just working to kind of strengthen that. We're going to explore some opportunities to increase our explicit SEL instruction to a more comprehensive manner across the student bodies, and making sure that we have we communicate that well to our families. We're also going to explore the potential for integrating elements of the restorative practices in the Windward context. So some work to do on this side, and I think my hope is we can have some really engaging discussions about how to best do this work in the context of Windward, which I think is always really important to consider when we're looking at any of these programmatic components. So on the DEIB component of this, and as we've said in our 3-year plan here, our goal is to recruit, hire, retain administrators, staff, and trustees of marginalized groups, and make sure that we are bringing the best folks to our community to help move all this along. And we believe that offering up some diverse perspectives on that is going to do a lot for us as a community. We're also going to work to increase our diversity representation within the curriculum and programming. We've already started on some of this work. We've been working with an outside consultant looking at our social studies curriculum, and we're kind of layering in language arts next. So we're also going to look at, as we've been doing with both Jean Baptiste and with Ramina, is to increase the cultural competency of our teachers, administrators, staff, and trustees. The board is engaged in this work. Leadership team is engaged in this work. Our faculty staff are engaged in this work. We're also going to work to increase the community engagement and family involvement in our DEIB events. It's one of those things where people say, well, I wish you would hold more events. And when we hold an event, and our attendance is low. And so we've got to figure out how to better communicate some of those events, try to figure out what's going to resonate with folks in the context of what we are holding, and just work to provide as many opportunities to engage. And I think right now, given this post-pandemic, when say post, we're moving hopefully from pandemic to endemic. But I think that, this community, and I think the world at large, is just hungry for some true community engagement, being together, connecting. I just can't tell you how good this felt here over the last couple of days to be able to do that. And we want to make sure we give our families some opportunities to do this around these DEIB topics. We also want to increase the diversity of our student body and provide opportunities for students to engage in a positive school experience when it comes to these matters. And we've got to talk about how are we sort of looking at referrals? How are we building, out our community a little bit? How are we making sure that we're advertising and reaching into communities to help folks understand and know how to access our services when needed? We're also going to increase in the number and impact of community building programs designed to promote a sense of belonging within the school, and especially those who come from historically marginalized populations. We have some real work, and I would say a real opportunity here coming out of the state of the world as it's been for the last 2 years to think about how do we really engage this community. I love being part of the Windward community, and I want folks to feel that connection to the community. And we just need to get to a space where we're actually building a lot more programs designed to do that amongst all of our community. So I think there's some exciting opportunities here for us. Certainly the role of governance and opportunity for growth. We want folks to know the great work that our board does. The board, they don't make operational decisions. They don't tell us what books to pick. They don't tell us who to hire. They don't tell us what families to take. They make sure we have policies and procedures set in place to run the school well. They make sure that we have adequate protections on our financial program. They make sure, so they get to hire one and only one employee, actually, and that person happens to be me. And they also get to only fire one and only one employee, and that also happens to be me. So I work really closely with the Board of Trustees to make sure that our financial work is in place, that we have a strategic plan in place, and that work is being carried out, that we are delivering on our mission to a very, very high degree. The board actually sets the mission, and it's the school's job to operationalize and make that mission come to life. And they also help a lot with fundraising in the school to make sure that we have the adequate resources to do the work. And they advise me on a number of things. So it's a great partnership that we have, and I think we are so lucky to have the board that we have. Not all schools have boards as strong as what we have, to be quite frank. And we just are really lucky that we have some folks who volunteer their time, their energy to make sure that we have everything we need to do this work. And they have been great partners throughout this pandemic and throughout the last 3 years. I think another opportunity that we really have in our community is this idea of community service. And we really should be looking at how do we create more opportunities for students and for community members to engage in serving and giving back. I think there's some really beautiful things to the idea of helping give back to a community and figuring out how do we help our kids see the importance of that and feel the good that comes from that. So we're really excited to do so. Compensation, compensation in any school, this is a space where, I think teachers should make, twice what they make in the world here. We have, I think all schools should be paying teachers a lot more. I think teachers should come out of college without debt. I think we should figure out some ways to really solve that. We've put a really good shoulder into doing that over the last several years, and we're going to continue to invest in our community. And we're gonna be looking at other competitive compensation models out in the community and making sure that we're benchmarking ourselves accurately. And also too, I think the second one, this idea of promoting a fair and accurate contextualization of salary and benefits packages. I know Jada, when I first arrived, spent a lot of time talking and thinking about how do we tell the story. I think that there was a lot of feelings that folks think we're getting cut, and we were just focusing on like saving some money in the process. But while we have to think about sort of the overall cost of program, we've also been thinking about ease of use, the comprehensive nature of the benefits package, and just working to kind of put on the table the absolute most competitive thing we can possibly put on there. And we've added some things, especially for our faculty over the last year, the master's program that we're working to partner with Manhattanville, sort of pulling back on some of the difference card pieces to make the whole program a little more accessible, but just try to kind of tell the story. And I think that's a big part of that, and making sure folks understand what we do get and how we are thinking about this and how we're making decisions on that. We have a lot of room to go in terms of having people understand that, but there's work being done on this side. When it comes to communications, we certainly have some room to go on this. The state of the pandemic and all the constant changes, the fact that we've had to reinvent school a number of times over the last 2 years has just made for a real challenging time in communications. I also think that The world is inundated with email, with messaging. And so we just want to spend some time looking at our messaging, our how we're sort of organizing. Are we making sure that we're as clear as we can be, as timely as we can be, and then working to always kind of sharpen that a little bit. When it comes to technology, I think this is a space that Windward has been a little slow to engage. Not a knock on anyone in our program, but just a reality of how we thought about the work. COVID has kind of pushed us into a space where we've had to kind of really engage a much higher level of technology than we have felt comfortable with for a long time. And so I think we really need to evaluate the role and potential benefits of emerging technologies in the Windward experience. We also really need to think about how technology enhances our communication. And we need to make sure that there's a reliable, seamless, and secure technology experience for all constituents. So as we talked about last year, we have a task force of the board. Again, so the board occasionally will do special task force like the DEIB task force we have in the diving group. That's actually kind of a board-based initiative that sort of filters its way into helping support the work in the school. And we have a board group helping me look at technology, think about how we're going to assign resource, because the idea of growing our technology does not come without some cost, right? And so if we're going to work on our infrastructure, provide better experiences on PD, provide some, better access to materials and make sure everything's moving along well, we have to have some resource, and the board helps me figure out how to make sure we're going to pay for all these things and maybe even step that out over a couple of years as we look ahead. So there's a lot that we need to do on the technology side, but I really appreciate the great work that our tech team has done. But we're going to take a look at how we can always sort of, again, coming at this from the perspective of us, we should always be evaluating where we are, how do we grow, how do we do this today a little bit better than we did the day before, and how do we do that in a very intentional and strategic way moving forward. So that's with all of these issues here. So now John and I will do that thing that we love to do so well, which is take some questions and try to, answer some questions. John, are you back with us here?
Yes, I am.
Okay. We'll see if anybody has any questions. I know I just gave a lot. So I do find a lot of value in these accreditation pieces. It is, as John pointed out, it's a tremendous amount of work. It's a tremendous amount of stress. But I do think if you're newer to the organization, I think spending some time with the visiting team report or the self-study report will give you a much clearer sense of what happens. If you've not had a chance to read the governance section, I would highly encourage you to do so. But this is really about this idea of congruence. Are we doing what we say we're doing? And to have an outside perspective say, because I've led teams in another sort of regions accredited piece here, which has been wonderful. And so, we've got some things that we need to do to kind of, as I'm sort of still trying to understand the NYSAIS part of this. But the hope here is that this gives us some real clear things and actual pieces that we can sort of think about as a community, be really proud of, and have some action orientations on this. So we got one question here is, will we ever consider having a community service coordinator as a full part-time job? That's a great question. And so it's something we have, not necessarily tossed around, but it's something we can sort of put in the hopper and kind of give some thought to. One thing that, at least in ISACs was big, and I'm pretty sure this is the same in NYSAIS, the visiting team tends to not make recommendations that will cause an expenditure of a resource. Meaning, so they would never say you should hire a community service coordinator. They will say you should explore how to go about finding and meeting the needs of your community and developing some clarity around, community service pieces. And then we could say, oh, well, a coordinator might be a really good way to do that. Let me make sure I've got my thing here. So yeah, we have discussed that recently. John had said, we're looking at this, but we want to make sure that we're doing what's right for our community. The work is big, and so when do we expect to have the NYSAIS report, and when will it be shared with the faculty before the end of the school year? That is a wonderful question. This is my first NYSAIS one. So my understanding is that Scott will share kind of the big summary pieces with me, like the big things, the big kudos, the big strengths, and the major recommendations. And then I think the report goes to NYSAIS, and then it eventually comes to us. So I don't know that, I'm not sure the timeline of that. Sometimes, at least in ISACs, they had like, I think quarterly meetings to look at all these together and vote on them from an accreditation standpoint. So I don't know if that's the same with NYSAIS. John, do you have some idea?
I wish I did. I know you're absolutely right. It goes to the full board of trustees of NYSAIS, and they eventually approve it. But I'd be surprised if we get it after the summer, and I hope we'll get it before the summer.
Yeah, and I've also experienced teams. So I've led 2 teams, and I've been involved in like maybe 2 or 3 others. And I've gone through 4 accrediting visits over my 15 years in independent schools. I will say there's just a wild difference in who leads the team, how quickly they get their stuff put together. Some people take like a month to get their report kind of finalized. I worked to have mine done the day I left the visit. I wanted to have maybe all but a few editing pieces done or a few formatting pieces done, but I'm not sure what Scott's plan is and how quickly they turn it around.
There's a question here about how does accreditation work? Do we pass or fail, or do we get a grade?
Great question. So it is really kind of often it's accredited fully. It's probably accredited provisionally. Say and for us, I don't know that I have a worry about us receiving full accreditation, because the things that would sort of get in the way of us is if we had some significant governance issues that needed to be addressed, i.e., like I know this happened once at a school that I was working with, where they had a religious structure and the kind of the overseeing kind of religious, like the father and the head of school had some real lack of clarity between roles and who was reporting to who. So that was a provisional status until they could sort that out. There was a school that had not done an audit every year, which is required to do some kind of external audit. And so that sort of stopped them from doing this. So there's lots of things, but I don't anticipate us getting anything other than a full accreditation on this. I can't imagine there's anything in here that would cause us to not do that. So there's no grade, but it's really a fully accredited provisionally or not accredited. And I, again, have no doubts that we're going to be fully accredited. So
there's a question about is the final report, is that an internal document, or is that a document that gets shared out with the full Windward community and beyond?
So it is an internal document. We often will share I've often shared the high level things that the committee has walked away, because I find that in the spirit of transparency is really good for the community, because not only do we go through this, our parents are aware that we're going through this, right? And so certainly giving them the green light that we have a clean bill of health when it comes to our accreditation process. And hey, by the way, here are some things that we're going to work on over the next few years. So
there's a question about, can we consider doing DEIB meetings in person in small groups, meeting in various classrooms, and maybe being on Zoom with Romina? I'm not sure if that is referring to our visit or just in general. But
I think it's general, but
yeah.
Maybe if she wants to, Ms. Stanley, want to correct us, feel free. I don't want to speak for Romina, but I think we're all hungry for some face-to-face meetings. No offense to Zoom, no offense to John right now. I think he and I are both getting a little tired of looking at each other on a camera. I'm getting a little tired of even seeing my face on the camera, right? Like, I want to be in person. I want to be with people. And I think this work is going to happen through relationships. And I think relationships are much easier built in person. So as often as we can kind of get back to that, as quickly as we can get back to that, at the hope. Now, I will say that I do believe that Zoom the pandemic has changed the face of education, I think, forever in so many different ways. And I don't have a crystal ball to tell you all those ways. But I think one thing that we're going to be living with for quite some time is the fact that anytime we have a parent meeting, people are going to expect there's going to be a live Zoom link, and that we're going to have to manage that in a way that allows people at home to interface with our stuff. And we've had some trial runs from that, and they've gone pretty well. But we're going to continue. We're going to continue to do that. So I see Romina has chimed in here and says, yes, you can speak for me. I would love to do small groups in person. I had a feeling Romina, given her personability on this, would have been in favor of that. But we want to get back to doing some of these things and being engaged. But I also think that we're going to have to figure out how to Zoom lives with us on our parent education, on our Windward Institute training stuff. and a few other spots. And so we're going to continue to think about that and make sure we're doing what feels right for our community. So
it also helps us, really beautifully with inclusion,
it
because
does.
the ability to participate by Zoom really expands our reach to families who don't have the resources, the childcare, and all those other things.
Yeah.
On the educational front, it is way too high a price to pay to have hybrid classrooms and allow people access in that way. So that's why we are returning to, to students in the classroom, and we're not looking to continue using Zoom on an academic front, or at least certainly far, far less than we've been doing in recent past.
So yeah, so I think our questions have kind of slowed down here. So, and I love to give back time where we can give back time. Again, I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate the feedback that folks have given to us. I appreciate everyone who engaged in the writing process for this. And my hope, as folks come in, we can engage this as a learning opportunity, which I think it is. We were a wildly different organization 10 years ago. What do we have? 450 kids, 2 campuses. We now have 3 at almost 1,000. Like we're a very different organization than we were 10 years ago. And so I think there's a lot for us to kind of look and be grateful for today. I think there's a lot about this visit that will help us give some direction for how we're going to do our work moving forward. But I just want to say thank you to everybody. And again, it's been so great to see everyone this week. And I look forward to bouncing around the buildings and seeing everybody during the visit too. So thank you for that. And with that, please go enjoy your weekend and relax a little bit. And hopefully the weather will stay positive. So with that, have a great afternoon. Thank you.